What's up? No, that's not how this goes. Hello! Welcome to White Door Tarot. That was weird. Welcome to White Door Tarot, where the reader is bubbly, but the readings can get dark. So today I am going to be doing the general energy check-in for the month of September for our Capricornian friends. We love our mergoats over here. Earth Gang. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, let's go. What's going on with the Capricorn folk? Ooh, Mother of Swords. Cool. Okay. The Hermit and the Son of Swords. And the Son of Wands. Wow. Wow. Lots of air and fire energy going on right now. Wheel of Fortune. Sweet. That's always a good omen. The Hierophant. Higher knowledge, deeper wisdom, school, establishments, tradition, etc., etc. Ooh, the Chariot. Sweet. Okay, we're on a roll here. I'm going to shut the F up so that I don't jinx anything. I jinxed it. Fuck. Okay, so we got the Five of Swords. Nope. 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 No. No. Try again. Ah, there we go. The Emperor. Okay. Anything else? Anything? Oh, Two of Swords. Okay. And now let's put this puzzles together. All right. No, okay. So the Five of Swords was not bad. It goes with the Two of Swords. And then it goes with the Hermit. And then Son of Swords. And also Son of Wands and Mother of Swords. And then also we get the Emperor along with the Hierophant and Wheel of Fortune, Chariot. And then now let's pull some alchemy cards before I dive into that. All right. Love these cards. They're beautiful. However, so difficult to shuffle. 1, 2, and 3. All right. We've got 10. 10. Very malleable material. We'll see what that's about. Conjunction. Cool. And the Golden Rose. Nice. All right. I believe the last reading that I did for you guys for the second half of September was about... This wants to come out too. Bottom of the deck. Overarching energy. All right. Was about everything being born from the dark. It was about embracing the new. Let's see here. The Golden Rose, the Golden Rose, the Golden Rose. And that's 58, I believe. Okay. Is L 50? Is that what it is? Why isn't it just like... Oh, okay, I see. Okay, that makes sense. The secret, the altar, the gem. The rose has long been used as a symbolic image for the summation of the alchemy, the outer petals representing the first 7 planets and operations, while the inner petals protect the revelations from unwelcome eyes. But what exactly resides at the center of the golden rose? Alchemy tells us it is a secret, and it is meant to be kept as such. The rose spirals both inward and outward simultaneously. It offers beauty to the onlooker while concealing its inner chambers. This is the complex nature of the golden rose. It challenges the alchemists to reorient their thinking, to devote their work to honoring the secret, rather than attempting to become the master of it. Kneel at the altar of the unknown. Cherish the golden rose as it is a model of the self. More will be revealed. Nice. Wow, we're going like straight up to the very end of the book with conjunction here. Love, divine union, infinity. What? Canunctio is the great alchemical operation of love. During this stage, we witness the miraculous work of two opposites merging to create a unique third form. Sun and moon unite to reveal the entire cosmos. Black and white unite to reveal the spectrum of color. Unlike coagulatio, canunctio represents a conscious and benevolent union, one that springs forth from awareness, acceptance, and devotion, perhaps with a guide. It is not a compromise, but rather an activation, a holding of tension and presence that allows each of the entities to thrive and express themselves. Experiencing conjunctio is one of the blessings of the human experience, whether the bond is with human nature or divinity. Recognize it by the stirring of your heart and an element of surprise. Through the opposites arises the infinite. Tracks. That tracks. That for sure tracks. Especially with the route that Capricorn has been going here lately. Tin. Malleable, expansive. Jupiter. Tin is a silvery white, highly malleable metal. This is in part because tin's structure is composed of crystals in cubic or tetragonal tetragonads, formation that can be broken or crushed under moderate pressure. When the crystalline structure breaks, a sound known as the tin cry can be heard, hence the unnerving sound of crinkling tinfoil. Such is the energy of the tin card. On one hand, it is in tin's Jupiterian nature to expand, to mobilize, to cover the whole territory. On the other hand, the metal cannot withstand much weight or pressure. When this card appears, you may have reached a limit or a breaking point after taking on more than is logistically possible under the circumstances. Don't take this juncture personally. More strength is required before taking next steps to support the expansion you see in your mind's eye. Lastly, synchronicity. I'll explain why I'm cheesing so hard here in a bit. Synchronicity, source, destiny, the miraculous message. The Unus Mundus is the presiding deity of alchemy. It arrives to remind us that we are not alone in our queries or our journey. What are we here to do? What pulls us forward? Unanswerable questions are timeless fuel for the flames of transformation. Mystics before us have uttered the same questions while tinkering in their laboratory. Do not underestimate the brave act of your attention to the details of your daily life, to the ecology of our world. What you notice matters. You matter. When this card arrives, sacred messages abound. Everything is a living symbol, a synchronicity. Its guidance is sent directly from the alchemists who have come before you to encourage you along the way. See the deeper meaning of what is in front of you. In this very moment, the new eye opens. I am cheesing Capricorn because this is exactly the stuff that I went through when I first awakened. And we go through multiple awakenings in our lifetimes. I don't give a shit what people say. There is no point that you hit where you have mastered all of it. We continue to grow until we die. But the first one is always the most intense. I was seeing angel numbers everywhere. I was seeing birds, butterflies, dragonflies showing up in threes. I was seeing the number three everywhere. I was starting to feel like Jim Carrey in that one movie where he's like haunted by numbers or whatever. And you start hearing voices in your head and it gets a little scary. And you're like, do I have schizophrenia? You know? And you kind of go through the whole thing just like, am I going crazy? Or am I finally tapping in and becoming sane? Yep. But this is this is where you meet your guides and you go through the synchronicities and you get the messages, but that's what comes after what I was talking about in your last reading, in your September 2nd half reading. Once you surrender to the new, once you surrender to the rhythm and the frequency of the universe, and you just recognize where you begin and where you end, and where it begins and where it ends, and how to dance with it, I guess. That's where everything starts to feel more natural. When we go through our awakenings, there are multiple stages. There's the calling, where we start to notice, we start to wonder, there's got to be more, right? And then you start to do your research and you start to try to gain as much knowledge as possible, because that's how humans deal with stuff that they don't understand. They try to understand it, and then we start to kind of develop something else happening, right? And then as we do that, that's kind of where the woo woo people tend to stop, is when they start to develop their gifts. They think that they're done. They think that they've mastered everything. That's why I'm gifted. That's why I have, abilities and whatnots. But when you go a step beyond that, you start to become your spirituality. You aren't spiritual. You aren't doing spirituality. You aren't having spirituality. You are your spirituality. That's what happens. It becomes impossible to differentiate it from yourself, because it becomes second nature. It becomes the way that you think. It becomes the way that you operate in the world. It doesn't become your identity. It just becomes you, but everything is born in the dark. You have to become nothing first, as in, you have to become nothing first. And I don't mean that in like a, kneel and surrender on the altar kind of way. No, because like I always say, spirituality is about self-empowerment. It's about becoming who the F you are. But becoming nothing means stripping yourself down of all the peanut butter that got smudged on your light bulb when you were born and society got its hands on you. Because the world is going to teach you things like, oh, you have to have X amount of money in your bank and make X amount of dollars every year for you to be worth a shit. Society is going to tell you, you have to be pretty, you have to have a skinny waistline to be worth a shit. And then becoming nothing is realizing that none of that matters. I am already worth a shit. I don't know why I keep saying it like that, but becoming nothing is stripping yourself down to your bare parts, becoming like a child again, opening again. I mean, seriously, you can tell a kid, like, hey, if you bury jelly beans in the soil, you're gonna get a jelly bean tree, and they'll just be like, okay, cool. You know, is it naive? Is it gullible? Sure, but is it also open-minded, hopeful? That's the kind of mindset that you want to have when you're going into this. And this sounds like you're starting to go through. You're starting to go through it. Nice. All right. So, getting into the tarot. Five of Swords, Two of Swords. Resistance, self-destruction, keeping a blindfold onto something, but that feels past tense. That was probably, with all these like astrological transits and whatnots that are happening in the sky right now, I've been noticing a trend that all zodiac signs seem to be developing the gifts that are opposite to their nature. As in, Taurians are learning to let go. We are known to be possessive. We don't like to let go of shit. And then Cancers are learning how to put themselves first for once, instead of becoming a martyr for everyone that they care about. Aries are getting a lesson in patience and taming their egos. Um, Capricorns, you guys like things in order. You guys like things a little predictable. You guys like routine, and you are terrified of not knowing things. But it feels like that's what you're letting go of. The Hermit, You're going into a space of introspection, inner work, reevaluating yourself. Son of Swords, Son of Wands, Mother of Swords. It looks like, though, it seems opposite to the Hermit energy because Hermit is about, kind of pausing to like explore inwards. Son of Swords, Son of Wands, Mother of Swords, though, tells me that you are finding a way forward. Like this introspection is actually what is driving you forward. The Emperor, the Hierophant. You know what this feels like? The Emperor is all about tradition. Top down hierarchy is kind of how I see it. Kind of stoic character, you know. Uh, anyway, basically, I don't tend to like that energy very much as a progressive female. But anyway, the Hierophant is about deeper knowledge, higher wisdom, also kind of about tradition, but more in a spiritual sense. This feels like something that you're overcoming because we like double whammied on the tradition energy here, spiritual and just systematic, societal. Yeah. And this feels like what you're busting through. My favorite book is The Little Prince. Well, one of my favorite books. The other one's called Veronica Decides to Die by Paulo Coelho. I really recommend reading that, by the way, to anyone that's listening to this. Veronica Decides to Die by Paulo Coelho, life changing. Anyway, in The Little Prince, there's a guy that's like living alone on a planet, and he's an accountant, and he keeps crunching numbers. He sits there with a typewriter or a computer or something, and he just keeps typing away, crunching numbers, counting money. And the little prince is like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm counting money." And he's like, "But why?" And then the guy's like, "Because it's important." And the little prince is like, "But why?" So and the little prince's whole thing is that he's in love with a rose and he tended to this rose, but this rose was also kind of a narcissist. And in the end he starts to realize as he becomes friends with a fox that he was only really in love with the rose because he was in love with the rose. Like the whole value of the rose was something that he put on the rose, not that the rose it in itself was valuable. It was the value that he placed on the rose. And that's the whole thing of the book. Basically, it's like value, what we value. There's also a king that doesn't rule anyone, but he's so proud sitting on his throne with the crown on his head, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so important, I'm a king." And the prince is like, "But where are your subjects? You don't have any subjects." So anyway, it's kind of like a parody of adulting is the best way that I can describe that book. But read it if you get the time. Anyway, the Emperor and the Hierophant. What this reminds me of is that accountant guy and the king, and you're finally starting to see it for what it is. As in, the more you start to realize that we are all interconnected and we are all spiritual beings just having just experiencing existence as humans, the more absurd it starts to look, the way the system works, and people that think that their title is supposed to give them authority somehow over other people. But that's kind of where the world went askew. That's where we got out of touch with love, is when people started wanting to own more, when greed took over, when power hunger took over, when people started thinking, I need to be important by asserting dominance over other humans, you know, when people decided that that's how they feel like they're worth a shit, if they have power over other people. And that's seen in organized religion, that's seen in government, that's seen in workplaces, that's seen freaking everywhere, even in households. Sometimes somebody's got to wear the pants kind of mentality. Why can't we all just get along? Because they don't feel important unless they're the ones wearing the pants. But that's their work to do. That's sad for them that they feel like they have to dominate in order to be worth anything, isn't it? So okay, I got really deep there, but basically, the Emperor and the Hierophant feels like you're starting to see the absurdity in all of that. And you're opening. Golden Rose. Wheel of Fortune. Luck is on your side. The Chariot. Fast movement forward. It looks like you are going to go through an enormous growth spurt from this, and I am super excited to see how this turns out. Capricorn, this is fun. Capricorn's going through a spiritual awakening. Let's go. I love seeing the more reserved people, the more reserved characters, just kind of like losing it. I thrive in chaos, despite the fact that I'm a Taurus. I kind of have like Stitch first landed energy, so I love seeing stuff like this. I am so excited, especially about these, the conjunction and synchronicity. Uh-huh. Yeah, this is going to be fun. All right, like, share, subscribe, comment to help me out with the algorithm, and hit the notification button so that you get notified every time I post a video, and I will see you in the next one.